So good morning. This morning, I'm super excited about this morning because first off, I just love when pastors from the other campus come and hang out with us. So you can meet my friends and the folks who inspire me and encourage me and support the work that I do out on this campus. But I wanted to tell a quick story first. Some of you maybe get excited about this thing called Monster Jam. Anybody ever been to a Monster Jam? Yeah, some of you are kind of proud of that, and some people are like, kind of proud. So I went to Monster Jam yesterday, not because I was super excited about Monster Jam, not because it was something we were doing for me. In fact, I had my wisdom teeth pulled out on Thursday. I was not super interested in being in the big place with things making my head shake. And all the singing this morning has definitely stretched me in some ways. But we went to Monster Jam. And we were going because, not all of us, my high school kids knew better, but my wife and I and our kindergartner went, and we went with another family who was so kind to invite us for their child's birthday. And so the six of us load in our car and we head out. Now, the story isn't about Monster Jam so much as it is about the trip to Monster Jam and the trip back. So some of us work outside of the bubble of Woodforest and the larger bubble of the Woodlands. Some of us get on freeways, we drive down to what most of us would call the real world. And in the real world, it looks a lot different than it does here in Woodforest and even in the Woodlands. If you go outside of the bubble that most of us live in, myself included, you might find yourself in a place called Conroe, a place called Caney Creek, New Caney, might even get all the way down into Houston. And we were headed down into Houston. And what you know about the real world is it looks a little different. And if you weren't aware of it, when you get down into the real world, your awareness grows very quickly. And there's this sharp reality that hits you. We're driving down I-45. I forgot to take Hardy Toll Road. Ended up costing us some time, I think. 45 down into the city, and then you go right through downtown, and you 59 this way, 288 this way. We take 288. Get down to Holcomb, Old Spanish Trail. I start to feel heart-warmed because I went to University of Houston for my undergrad, and I wanted to pull left, but we were going right. And we take the exit, and the first stoplight we get to, there it is. The thing that most of us get to avoid living in the bubbles that we live in, and that's people in need. In our communities up here, people in need typically hide in the woods. But down in the city, they're out for all the world to see. And so we go to make this turn, and you start seeing these sort of lean-tos, and you start seeing these tents. I mean, we're in the civilized town of Houston, Texas, and you see people living in tents. There's like these little tent cities, and if you didn't get to an underpass to shield yourself from the breeze first, you end up kind of wide out in the open, and there's groups of people. And as we made the turn to go to NRG, it was voiced in the car, they're going to really struggle in the next couple days. It's going to be really hard for these guys in the next couple days as the temperatures drop. And I start thinking to myself, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm worried about just saving my sprinkler system. I'm just making sure I've got the right water things turned off and the screws turned so it drains out. And I'm in a text group with guys who we're just trying to make sure we had the 1-inch insulation to go around our sprinkler pipes. But these guys, they might lose their lives. I'm internalizing this, and I start feeling what most of us feel when we're confronted with real need. We're confronted by people whose lives have taken a turn other than the way that our lives have taken a turn, whether it was as a result of their own actions or just the result of the harshness of the world we live in. But we go and we watch Monster Jam, and it was great, and the big shark thing did not win. It was the Bakugan one won, for those who were wondering. And then we were getting back in the car, and we were making our way back, and there it was again. We had to confront it all over again. And it was voiced again. Well, gosh, there's got to be a place for these people to get out of this cold. Is there going to be anywhere that they can get out and be warmed? Because 0 to 10 degrees is going to be really, really harsh. And I thought to myself, well, what can I do? I mean, I'm the pastor in the car. I should be giving ideas. I should be doing something myself. But I didn't know what to do. What can I do? I mean, these people live way down there, and I live way up here, and I can't bustle them, and our church doesn't have plans to open. But then I found out that Wildwood UMC, 1488, we're partnering with them, And Church Project down in the Woodlands, they're a warming place. And so if you know people who are looking for a warming place, they need warm food, they need warm shelter, our particular building is not involved. Instead, we're encouraging and supporting churches who are able to pull that off. So if anybody up here, you find that need, Wildwood UMC is where we're helping. And Church Project is where they're being helped. So just be aware of that. But I found myself, and I don't know if you've ever been here, have you ever seen a need and just started asking yourself, what can I do? What can I do? And you hear that question asked to yourself and you go, man, the need is so great. I don't even know where to start. Or even worse, somewhere that I've landed from time to time, I'm kind of ashamed to admit it, but I just talk myself into thinking about something else. Like, what can I do? Oh, there's not really anything I can do. So I move on. Just move on. But when you're confronted with the needs of others, not just sparingly, but frequently, you can't go the route of, what can I do? Oh, nothing. Let me get home and get that insulation. You got to do something. So the next step, I think, that leads us towards action is the action step of asking the question, not just of ourselves, like, what can I do? And then talking ourselves out of it, but saying, God, what can I do? Like, these are your children. It's your son, it's your daughter. These are people you died for. What can I do? It's interesting when you start bringing God into that conversation that all of a sudden you can't talk yourself off the cliff of doing something. Especially if you grew up in the church and you realize that when we're doing it for them, we're doing it for Jesus. And there's a story actually that talks about this. It's in the 25th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. It's a text that's very familiar to me. When I was a kid, I remember walking through the little church that I grew up in, had pea gravel interior floors. Man, those things hurt when you were running in church and tripped. But I remember right inside the front door to the right-hand side, there was a wooden box. And out on the outside, it said, whatever you did for the least of these, you did it to me. And it was a box that we used to put groceries in. And then my family and other families would empty the box. And we'd go take it to the local homeless shelters throughout the year. So I'm remembering this story, but let me remind it to you. So this is like this long section of red letters in the Bible where Jesus talks and talks and talks. We haven't seen this much talking from Jesus since the Sermon on the Mount back in Matthew 5-7. But here in chapter 25 in verse 31, Jesus says this. I just want to give you part of the story. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. And all the nations will be gathered before him, and he's going to separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates sheep from goats. He'll put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, and take your inheritance, the inheritance that is the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. And then Jesus continues, for I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Now, the second half of this is directed towards the goats, and I'll let you go back and read. Then the righteous will answer, Lord, when did we see you? An important part of this text is that the righteous were not righteous because of something they've done. They're righteous because of what Christ has done. This is what we believe as Christians. People who follow after Jesus, we are not righteous by our own actions. We're righteous because of Christ's actions. And so I'm speaking to you as the righteous of God. I'm speaking to you, sheep who have heard the good news of God, who have now heard the good news of this scripture. I'm speaking to you, righteous ones. When did we see anyone hungry or thirsty? or in prison, sick and in need? When did we feed them or give them water or go and visit them? When did we take care of another person's needs? When do we do it for Jesus? And Jesus seems to say that whenever you do these things, you're doing it literally for him. And I'm hearing this story thinking about, what can I do, God? What can I do? And I hear God saying, I've made you righteous and I'm giving you opportunities to serve. Thankfully, God's a gracious God. And so where my mind goes first is to a place of defensiveness. Maybe yours goes there too. Pastor, I help people. I've given food to hungry people before, water to thirsty people. I've visited people in prison. I've given clothes to those who are in need. I've done these things. That's God's grace being offered to you. And a reminder that his righteousness is in you. And I need to be reminded of that. I need to be hit with this not as a like, shame on you, Brent, for not doing more, but as a, Brent, remember, this is why I came. Hey, Brent, remember, this is why you said yes. Brent, remember, all the things that I've done for you, you get to do them right back for me. Every time you see someone in need, you get to meet my need. You feed someone hungry, you feed me. You visit someone in prison, you visit me. It's a reminder. I think God's gracious to give us this first chance to, in our own defensiveness, to be reminded of the times when we've done these very things. And the idea is that it would inspire us to do it again, to do it more, because we're doing it for him. Now, once we get ourselves to that place where we're no longer just asking ourselves, what can I do? But we're asking the Father, our God, hey, God, what can I do? Don't start asking that level of questioning until you're ready to respond, because he's going to give you something to do. Now, some of us can still pretend that the need is too great. God, I know we should be feeding all these people, but I mean, what am I supposed to do? I don't even know where to start. Then you get to that third layer, and that third layer is one that will really get you into trouble. You start asking other people out loud, how can I help? What can I do? Then you're going to put yourself in a place where you're going to have to do something. And this happened in our church. As you know, if you're a part of our church, you've been around, if you were here back in December, late November, December, you know that there was a time when we had a Christmas tree out in the hallway. And on that Christmas tree, there were tags with people's names on them, children's names. We were trying to get gifts for families whose kids wouldn't otherwise get to experience Christmas the way that our children experience Christmas. And so in your typical fashion, as soon as the tree goes up with the tags, you just go and take them all. And then there's people who come behind you saying, I didn't get one. And then typically what we do is we go to the other campus and either overtly or discreetly, we take tags off of their tree. And we bring them over and we put them on our tree. You people are so stinking generous. You grab all the things you can. People from the other campus start wanting them back. No, we're serving. We're excited. We're eager. Well, even in that case, most years we end up with an empty tree because you people are just so stinking generous. Ready to serve, ready to do. So all the tags are gone. And a family member at church calls and says, hey, we wanted to help. Just weren't any tags left. Is there anything we can do? Sure, you can bring gift cards. Awesome. So his family shows up with a pile of gift cards. Checked the box, did the right thing. Nope. Holy Spirit keeps nudging, keeps making them uncomfortable, keeps jabbing. We've got to do more. Is there anything else we can do? Well, we'll let you know. And then God. A woman who works in our community but doesn't live in our community was in great need. Reached out to the church. Hey, is there any help I can get from the church? We are wondering about Christmas and we want to get things for the kids and da-da-da-da-da-da. Hey, actually, we know somebody. We connect them. We vet them first and then we connect them. This family ends up getting to do what they wanted to do with the tree, but it doesn't stop there. Take the gifts. Take the tree. Get them all set up. Come to find out, this family's housing situation isn't quite right. What can I do? Maybe I can do something about this housing situation. Do something about the housing situation. Put this woman who works in our community but doesn't live in our community into a residence of her own for her family. Oh, but who wants to live in a house where there's no furniture? Got an idea. Let me see if I can find some furniture. What can I do? Well, I can put it out there and just see if anybody shows up with furniture. You know what? People showed up with furniture. Now we got this house, we got all this furniture, but we got the furniture's over here and the house is over here. How do I get it there? Church, is there any way we can get this furniture to this house? Of course. We call up one of our men's Bible studies. Hey, you think you and your guys might be able to get this furniture over to this house? Oh, absolutely. So on a Saturday, the guys from that Bible study that meet in our church, they go and meet this family, and they go meet the family in need, and they unload the furniture, and they start putting the furniture out, and these guys start walking around the house going, man, you know, we really could do that. This house could really use a little TLC here, and we could do that. And what else do y'all need around here? Oh, I need this. And so now this men's group's trying to figure out what else they can do. It all started by asking the question, what can I do? Not in a defeatist way, but in a generous way. Like, what can I do? And I'm believing that amongst the people who've gathered in this room today, many, many, many of you are asking yourselves, okay, there's a need. What can I do? I'm glad you asked. John Hull, let's come tell the people what they've won.
Let's do it.
So as John gets up here, he's our pastor for missions, local and abroad. And John's not going to ask you for a single dollar because that's not what he does until October.
But we'll take it.
I feel like a ventriloquist up here. But we want to serve, we want to do. There's needs in this community that we want to fulfill. So John, when someone comes to me and they say, Pastor, you talk to me about sheep and the goats, you tell me that there's hungry people and there's thirsty people, there's people to visit, where do we start? Could you just give them a quick lay of the land for local, don't even have to leave the county, kinds of opportunities to love and serve people here?
Yeah, we have, our missions ministry is incredible. It is all local, all international. We are all in doing everything that God has called us to do. And so we have so many opportunities for you. If you feel called, if you feel like you want to help somebody, so many times when we're at home, we have no idea, like Brent said. It's like, where do I start? What do I do? We give you that opportunity. And we have ministry partners that we work with, we have vetted with. And our first goal is to be the heart of Christ to people in our community. There's so many people in need. When you see them, you're walking around or driving around in Conroe or even here on our highways, and you see the homeless are living under the bridges and people like that. And it's so easy to drive by and just maybe say a quick prayer, just move on and not even think about it. But there's so many ways that you could help those people through the ministries we've got here in our church. And it all starts with having the compassion and love of Christ in your heart. It's not about doing a good work and checking out the box that you did something on a Saturday and now I feel good about what I've accomplished. It really is the inside of you, the heart of you, the spirit of you having the spirit of Christ. And when you see him as the example, when you look at him and how he lived his life, he was the King of Kings and came down and he walked from place to place, and everywhere he went, he saw need and he touched that and reached out and touched people. He loved them with compassion. And that's what we're asking. As Christians, he's asking us to have that same heart, to think and to feel the same way he does when you see people in need. But when you need something in some way to connect with the ministry, we have those partners for you. And sometimes it will be doing something a little bit uncomfortable. Sometimes it's really just taking your heart and letting it happen. And when you do, it changes your life. But I'm telling you, when you're with people like with the homeless or something like that, if you take time to hear their story, take time to look in their eyes, you realize that when you're looking at homeless people, many of them are veterans who came back with post-traumatic stress syndrome, or they just couldn't fit back into society well, or they're single moms whose husband left and they don't have a way to support their family and they're living on the streets. Or there are people who got caught up in some kind of addictive behavior and they can't get out of it. They're trapped. But the Lord loves them so much, and he wants us to be a part of helping them in whatever way we can. So we have ministries. We have so many of them. Well, if you're interested in serving homeless, for example, we're partnered with Compassion United up in Conroe. They're starting to build Miracle City, which is going to be an incredible place. We're going to bring homeless can come to receive what they need, but also to teach them skills to become self-sufficient and teach them how to live on their own independently and to be off the streets. We work with Hope Beyond Bridges, which is serving meals to the people down the highway that are living under the bridges, where we go out and literally provide a meal for them, talk to them, and look them in the eye and pray for them. You know, we have ministries like Habitat for Humanity where you can go, every year we build a Habitat house, and every year we have a group of women who do the women's build. It's not just men, it's men and women to build a Habitat house. You know, we have ministries, one called the Geezers, and some of you are a part of the Geezers, a self-named group, and mostly retired men, but a few women also, that are building wheelchair ramps for people living in poverty who are in wheelchairs or are handicapped and can't walk down the steps, can't get out of their house to do the things they need to do. And so we build ramps, wheelchair ramps for them so that they can survive and go out. Feeding the hungry, we work with the Montgomery County Food Bank, and we work with Compassion United. We provide food to families and to homeless. We do both. We're going to do the food drive. It's coming up March 16th with the food bank, and we're going to do it right near here, and you can tell them more about how we're going to get them involved with that.
Yeah. So we're doing what we're trying to do with our men's ministry is create these opportunities for dads and their kids to serve together, not just have fun together, but serve together. And so if you're a dad and you got a kid at home or kids at home, boys, girls, doesn't matter. March 16th, the families will line up at Stewart Elementary, and then they'll come into our church parking lot, and we're going to fill their trunks with food, working with the food pantry. So it's for fathers and their kids. You'll hear a lot more about it coming up. But yeah, March 16th. I think it's a Tuesday during spring break.
I think so. And we also have things like backpack buddies where you go to the Montgomery County Food Bank. You just go and you spend a couple hours and you put together these backpacks, food and containers, and they're taken to the schools, and the schools give it to the low-income children to take home for the weekends so that they have food at home when they're not getting the meals the schools provide. There are so many things, and we've got a way that you can find out what's going on if you want to be a part of any of this. Sherry Llewellyn she's head of local missions and she works with me, and she provides all these programs. Every Friday, she puts out an email to people that gives you a list of what's coming up in the next month or two of opportunities where you can actually go and participate and be a part of it. But you can only receive that email if you give us permission to send it to you. You know, as a church, we don't want to bombard you with all kinds of emails. So you need to opt in. You need to say, hey, I want to receive this. If you do, it's one email a week on Friday. You can look through it and you can just see what's coming up and say, hey, I'd like to do this, or I'd like my kids and I to go do this, or something like that. So Brent's going to tell you how we're going to put that link up for you. I think you have.
That's right, yeah. So if you're a member of our church, you have, as a default, asked to receive the newsletter that comes from me on Thursday morning. So whether it might be going to your junk folder. Some of you may actually be sending it to your junk folder. Every now and then when you subscribe, by the way, when you unsubscribe, I see it, all right? And I've gotten to where I don't let that hurt my feelings anymore. But if you're a member of our church, you've said, I want to receive the newsletter. And in that newsletter, the first paragraph above the video this past week, you'll see a link where you just go click it. It'll take you right to the missions page, scroll down, and receive the missions newsletter. What can I do? You click on the link, and you see what's available, and there'll be something for all of you.
Yeah. But I also want to tell you, this is about you as well. Because when you're doing something like this, your heart is changed when you start to see people through the eyes of Christ, through his eyes, and you see them that way. And one of the stories I'd love to tell is and I've preached around the world about, is the story of blind Bartimaeus in Mark chapter 10. And blind Bartimaeus was a beggar sitting by the side of the road. And when Jesus was leaving town, followed by all these people who are just like he was a rock star just following after him, in the midst of all that crowd and all that noise, he heard blind Bartimaeus sitting beside the road begging. He heard him cry out to Jesus, and he brought him to him. And he said, what do you want? And Bartimaeus says, I'd like to see. And when Jesus healed him, the first thing he saw was the face of Jesus. Can you imagine if that was the first thing you saw? But what I want to tell you is when you reach out and you touch somebody's life, if you're doing a kindness for someone or helping them in some way, they're seeing the face of Christ through your faith because of the compassion and the kindness that you have and that you offer. That's what God calls us to be. It's not about doing a project. It's not about doing something. It's about being Christ to these people that he loves.
Yeah, I was saying in the earlier service that something else about this story that always jumps out to me is if you think back through the healings and such of Jesus, when Jesus is walking amongst, how many times we just get the deaf, the mute, the blind, the poor. We don't get someone's name, but in this case we get the name, Bartimaeus. And it reminded me of how many times that when you look at the humanity of another person, when they're more than just a project or more than just that bum on the side of the road or more than just that person in need for something that they did or maybe didn't do, more than just that person who, we've been talking about this a little bit over the last number of months. When we look at one another without seeing humanity in them, it affects the way we look at them. It impacts the way we listen to them, amount of compassion we're willing to show them. people we disagree with, people that we don't like. When you start seeing other people as humans with the fingerprints of God on them, things change. And I've been thinking about how many times when you pull up next to somebody, and if you feel safe to do so and you roll down your window, there's somebody at 242 and 1488 from time to time. That may be the closest person you get to. But if you were to stop at that light and roll down your window and just ask their name, just ask their name. Things change when you hear the name of a person in need. They're no longer just that woman who's begging on the corner. That's Sally. Sally is somebody's daughter. May have been somebody's wife, somebody's sister, maybe somebody's mother. But it's Sally. And nobody wanted this life for Sally. The humans in Sally's life or the God who created Sally. It changes things when you have that name attached. So if you feel fine doing that, great. If you've been taught, don't roll the windows down because you can't trust, you got to be scared, that's fine. Just call him Jesus. Just call him Jesus because that's what Matthew 25 says. Sally is Jesus. It protects you from rolling down your window, just, hey, Jesus. But let compassion be the thing that wells up, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
John, we're about out of time, but there's a big thing coming up internationally that I don't want you to leave without telling them about.
So excited to tell you. You might have seen this in our newsletters, but every year we as a church have sent out about 15 to 20 mission teams all over the world. And we are able to go as a group of people from our church and to help people who are in need, to build houses, build churches, build hospitals, to do vacation Bible schools for kids and introduce them to Christ. We do all kinds of things. But because of COVID, it literally has been 1 year since we've been able to send a team. When you're on a mission team, it does two things. We serve the people we go to serve, but it also changes the lives of those we take on our teams. When you're seeing things and experiencing things, you start to see people through the eyes of Christ. Mm-hmm. We haven't been able to go, but through one of our ministry partners called Zoe Empowers. Zoe is one of the ministries you might have heard about in the missions conference where they take orphans around the world whose both parents have died. The kids have no parents. They're not in an orphanage and they have to survive. Zoe takes these groups of children and works with them for 3 years and empowers them, gives them knowledge, gives them skills, tells them how to start a new business, teaches them how to save some money, how to get a little hut for their family, for their other brothers and sisters. Zoe's an incredible ministry. So Zoe and the leaders of Zoe are going to take us on February 23rd, 24th, and 25th from 8:30 in the morning till 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so time zone, that's like in the late afternoon for them, but it's in the morning for us. If you sign up for this mission trip, it's a virtual one through Zoom. You can get on there and see, and they're going to have the Zoe people on the ground, their staff on the ground with these kids. On the 23rd will be in Rwanda, the 24th will be Kenya, and the 25th will be India. We heavily support these ministries. These are kids that our church is supporting to go through this program. I'm telling you, if you want to have an international experience, you're going to hear their stories, you're going to meet them, and you're going to see the situation and life in that situation. Go online to church website, go to the missions page, and you can sign up for this virtual mission trip, no cost, and it's just an hour and a half a day for 3 days.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Oh,
Excited about it.
It's going to be great. Yep.
The children's offering, by the way, that we collected in January and that we're collecting in February, those dollars are also going to Zoe Ministries. And so if you have kids who are in children's ministry right now, or you're a kid here still in the room who comes up and brings your children's offering, you ask your mom and dad, hey, when's that virtual thing? We want to see it. Yep. If you're a virtual homeschool or whatever.
Do it with your kids. I'm telling you, great experience.
Yeah, hop on. Yeah. Hop on. John, I'm so glad that you were here
My pleasure.
Today. The thing I don't want any of our folks to ever feel is guilt. Jesus wasn't trying to make these people feel guilty. He was trying to invite these people into an opportunity. And you have to look harder for the opportunity here. And so when people come to me and they say, Pastor, we know there's needs somewhere out there. What do we do to help? I find that when your heart is connected to the heart of the person you're serving, it doesn't feel like guilt anymore. It just feels like joy. And so I'm tired of not being able to say, when they say, what can I do? I'm not real sure. Let me go find out. Well, now we know. Now you've heard. And there's no more excuses. We all have opportunities to serve if we felt called to do so. Let me pray for us as we close, and then we'll have the band come and lead us in our last song. God, thank you so much for the day you've given us. And I'm just aware right now that we're sitting here in a really warm building. Our hearts are being warmed by your goodness in our lives. We are all so aware of your blessings. And when we think about the troubles or the struggles that we might experience over the next day or two, like we don't get to drive to our favorite restaurant, or school got canceled or work's going to be impacted. We're going to have to check our pipes at the house. We may have to go to the grocery store this afternoon to make sure we have plenty of food for the next few days. God, I'm just aware of how fortunate we are, how fortunate our lives are. That these are the kind of decisions we're making. And I'm grateful that you step into the lives of folks who maybe are completely unaware of the needs of others, who are ready and willing to step in to offer their part. God, thank you for bringing John out here today to open our eyes to where can we serve. Allow the people who are gathered here, just good, warm-hearted people who want to do whatever they can to serve people around them, to give them more opportunities, more ideas. I thank you for that. I give you thanks knowing that it's your Spirit that inspires us to do any of this. We're made righteous by your work in us. It's not we who live, but you who live in us. And so God, we're not going to ask ourselves anymore, what can I do? We're going to start by asking you, God, what can we do? And then we're going to listen, and you're going to empower us, and you're going to set us in a direction, and it's going to be good. It's going to be good. Thank you, God, for this time together. We offer it to you in Jesus' name. Amen.